dream that I had, I believe, is an answer to prayer. I had been really kind of seeking the Lord for um, just kind of where we're at as a country, kind of in his prophetic timeline, because I see some Christians just say, well, you don't really see the United States in end time prophecy. So, given that belief, they kind of just accept what's going on with our country and don't really seem to want to push back or pray or do those things. But I've been having a hard time with that, so I was really seeking God for kind of where we're at as a country. And the dream that I had, I believe, is an answer. So the dream is as follows. I knew it was early in the morning in the dream. I was walking down a big hill and towards a pond. To my left were really tall grasses. On the other side of the pond that was at the bottom of the hill was forest and trees. So as I'm walking down, those tall grasses are on my right. I kind of walked around those grasses to get to a clearing and keep heading down. I knew I was going down to set up for a wedding. And I also knew that there were more people coming behind me, but they were pretty far behind me. So as I got down around those tall grasses to head down all the way down to the bottom, I noticed that through the forest on the other side was an army. And in my dream, they were dressed kind of like you'd see Redcoats from the Revolutionary War. But I remember thinking, oh, they're wearing red. It must be China. So at that point, I turned around and I tried to get back on the other side of those tall grasses as soon as I could to be, so I wouldn't be in view. And I was running uphill at this point to tell the other people that were coming down, go back, they're invading. So I got the message to them, but then at this point in the dream, I was still going uphill, and I knew that the other people had turned around and went back, but I felt like I was really far away from them. And I knew it was going to take me a long time to catch up. So I did get to the top of the hill, and it was like almost like a town that you would see, kind of like if you're watching a Revolutionary War movie, like just an old nice town set up with white picket fences, and it was like that. But I knew again that they were way far away, and I was tired at this point. So I said, Lord, just take me. And at that point, I started flying up in the air for a while, and it really felt amazing. And then I woke up.
Wow. That's incredible. So when you were at the top of the hill and going down the hill towards the pond, grasses on one side, across the pond was the forest where the army was. Were you alone when you were going down towards the pond? Okay, and you know why you were headed down towards the pond to begin with?
Yeah, to set up for a wedding.
Set up for a wedding. That's right. You said that. Wow. It's fascinating. The idea of setting up for a wedding is the idea of preparing, of course, the bride. I mean, that's kind of an obvious symbol, right? So it's the idea of preparing for the bride. One of the ways that we prepare for the bride is, the parable of the 10 virgins. It's like keeping watch and having your light on. And so what I see you doing is you're like a lookout. You're somebody that actually, instead of standing on top of the hill and seeing what's going, you're actually scouting out the land. You went down the hill towards the pond, circle the grasses, towards the forest, see the army, and now you're headed back. Like, I have to go raise the alarm. Well, you didn't go to raise the alarm. You went to literally prepare the bride. Well, part of preparing the bride is preparing the bride for war, right? And so I feel like what the Lord is saying is he's giving you, in particular, a seer anointing. You go down the hill, which represents the idea of going down to a basin level. Of course, there's a body of water there. So it's the idea of going down into like a valley, getting to the bottom of things, which is a base level of understanding what's really happening, what's really going on, right? And then I feel like the grasses on the one side represent the idea of, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I feel like I heard wheat. And I believe wheat is actually a grass. I know there's wheat grass, but there's wheat, it's different. But I feel like it's from the same family. It's the idea of tall grasses, and it reminded me of the parable of the wheat and the tares. Like the good and the evil are growing up together at the same time. Of course, the trees in the forest represents a level of hiddenness, of camouflage, but it also represents, uh, to me, I heard, the dream of Nebuchadnezzar, which is the dream of a tree, and in that instance, in particular, a tree represented a world leader. So the idea of a forest represents a group of leaders, right? It could be like the United Nations. It could be like a group or a collection of leaders, and it may not be that grandiose. It could be, a group of local leaders. But I feel like it's a group of leaders. That's what the forest and the trees represent, and the forest and the trees are literally hiding an invading force. So they're sheltering something, which again is the idea of propaganda. It's the idea of the world that we live in now. If we don't understand at this point that a massive portion of everything that we ingest through our eyes and ears, whether it's television or broadcast media or radio or shows of any kind, and even marketing on billboards, is designed to create a particular sense of feeling, a particular narrative. You just look at everything everywhere is geared towards the idea, like, we're all in this together. And, it's just craziness. But so that's the idea of they're literally hiding things, and they're hiding an offensive that's coming. And you're going down to prepare the bride, literally to set up the wedding. But what you see an offensive or an attack that's coming. And so you change course. You turn around and you begin running back up the hill because you want to warn who's ever up there. Turn around, go back the other way. They're coming, they're invading. Now, as you're going up the hill, it's literally like going uphill. It's very slow going. It's treacherous. It's the idea of trying to wake people. A lot of times God gives us dreams to wake people up. And there's so much confusion in the world right now. And what we want to do is we just want to speak clarity. That's why we continuously ask, God, show us what's going on. Give us the truth of the world. What's happening? Show us some dreams, visions, prophetic words. And even unfortunately, even in the Christian community, there's a lot of confusion. Even in the prophetic, there's a lot of confusion. There isn't a clear sound that's coming out. And one of the reasons why we do what we do is we want to centralize what's being said in the prophetic, in the dreams, bring it together and say, what is God saying in the collective? Because as 1 Corinthians 13 says, we know in part and we prophesy in part. So even if you're a known prophet and you have a word from God, that's great. You have a piece. That's it. One piece. So we don't have the full picture of everything that's happening in the world all at once. But so we're training groups of people to bring those pieces together and say, what is God saying? What is the big picture? And so that's what happened is you came down and you observed a piece. And the piece was, hey, the piece is about to be broken. They're about to launch an attack. There's a standing army hidden in the woods beyond the grass on the other side of the pond. And each one of these pieces have something in particular for that we could get into. It would take a while just to go through, break down every part of the forest, the trees, the grass, the length of the grass, the pond. The pond represents the idea of Holy Spirit. It also represents the idea of a spirit of wisdom. But it's also a buffer between where you were on the hill and you come down and there's the pond, and on the other side of the pond was the army, right? And so there's a buffer. There's literally a layer of protection between you and the hill. And of course, what's on the other side of the hill or at the top of the hill is this city, this town, this unsuspecting town that has no idea what's about to hit it. Okay, and so you represent You represent somebody that is awake spiritually, that God is speaking to, that He's put in a position to be able to know things in advance and to see things coming. And you're going about your business, preparing the wedding, and now all of a sudden your entire mission in life has changed because instead of preparing a celebration, now you're warning of impending war. And that's exactly the job of seers. They can do both. They can prepare the bride and they can say, this is coming. We need times of intimacy and have your oil and your lamp and all of that. But then there's a time of, okay, grab your shield, grab your sword, warfare is coming. We need to be ready. We need to stand on the wall. We need to be focused on what's literally coming up over the hill. And so I feel like you've been in a position in particular where you've seen things that other people haven't seen. You've gone uphill to raise the alarm, and it's been going uphill. It's been hard. People haven't listened to you. They haven't honored the word that God's given you prophetically or as a seer. It's been like slow going and trudging, but the beauty of the dream is you make it to the top. So you make it to the top, you're able to literally raise the alarm, which means that there's a process, and it may even be a process of growth with you to get you to the place of articulation where you're able to, it's like the Paul Revere thing, right? Where you're able to articulate the warning and say, literally, the Redcoats are coming. So the Redcoats, by the way, it's fascinating. They represent, in particular, the idea of the global banking cabal, which is like a theme. It seems like sometimes God speaks through these things in themes. It represents the idea, one of the financial centers of the world is London. It represents the idea of the old school money, the monarchy, the central banking system. I could give you 100 reasons why, from even the Redcoats in the Revolutionary War to what that means related to what's happening globally, is centered in these particular financial centers in Europe. But that's what it represents. It represents the idea of it starts with the banking systems, and then it goes down from there to governments and other systems of control related to different industries, related to different agreements, treaties, governments, ideas, all of that stuff. And so you're seeing it, and you're taking the time and the arduous task of running up the hill to get to the top and raise the alarm. So this dream is two things. One, it's an identity and a destiny dream for you, that you're a forerunner, you're a seer, going about doing your work of preparing the bride. God is going to show you some things that you need to raise warning on. And to do it, even if it's difficult, even if people don't listen, don't give up, get to the top of the hill, raise the warning and warn the town. And by the way, when you're engaging an enemy from an elevated position, you're in a superior warfare strategy position than if you're the ones approaching up the hill. So I believe that represents even the idea of victory. Look at the story of Gideon. That's the same thing. They're coming from an elevated place, going down. The enemies, if they try to engage at all, they actually got scared and destroyed each other, but they would have to try to go uphill, and while they're climbing uphill, try to engage the enemy, and it's much easier to shoot downward and to charge downward, and you have momentum and force and all those things behind them. But the other thing is God is talking about, again, what is happening in the world today, that there's a group of leaders that have lied to us. That's what the trees are. That they're hiding an invading force. And they're saying, oh, everything's good and everything's this. And this has to do everything with politicians, the world leaders, and in particular the media, where they're saying, oh, watch the birdie, look over here. And there's really something else that's going on over here that much more dramatically affects our lives than the garbage and the dribble and the poor acting and the ridiculousness that they're playing over and over and over again in all forms of media. This isn't just the mainstream media. This is the subtext media. This is even some of the citizen journalist media who unfortunately haven't done research, and they're reposting stuff that we can't tell you the sources, and we can't tell you that, but we've heard from a guy, and none of that's credible. None of it.
Right.
As well as social media. My son showed me the other day. He said, look at this, Dad. And it showed like a plane flying overhead and just a stream of tracer bullets on a mounted, and I actually knew what the weapon system was because I was in the military, that was shooting after this thing. And I'm like, that weapon system has its own radar. There's no way that it would miss that plane. And eventually it connected, but it was like just a whole line of machine gun tracer fire before it hit it. And I'm just like, well, that doesn't look right. And then he pulled up another video and he goes, people are posting this on social media. This is actually a clip from a video game. And he showed me the video game. That's what's happening.
There's a lot of that, yeah.
You know, if you watch the news, I turned on the news just for fun, just to laugh at the bad acting and the horrible, you know, guys in helmets with flak jackets on and like, oh, we can hear the bullets around us. You know, there's like kids playing basketball in the back. It's all lies. It's all this, you know, these war correspondents are some of the biggest jokes in the history of media that I've ever seen, ever. I was in the first Gulf War when CNN first started and they actually reported the news. There was the shock and awe campaign. What's going on in Eastern Europe, we're not seeing on the news. We're seeing pieces of bombed out or supposedly bombed out tanks or this or that. Where's the front lines? Where's the actual battle happening? One missile hitting a building is not a military attack by a superpower level country taking on, and very likely an inferior, at least in numbers, force. That's not what it looks like. It looks like the United States invading Iraq and pushing them back out of Kuwait. That's what it looks like. And so what we're seeing on the news is garbage. You know, I think most of what we're seeing on the news isn't even related to what's actually happening now. It's all subterfuge. It's all creating fear. I'm not saying there isn't a war going on, and I'm not saying there aren't attacks happening. I'm saying we are absolutely 1,000% being lied to. And there's a coordinated front of leaders. You got all kinds of leaders from all kinds of places, a lot of whom I don't think I even want to have coffee with, let alone trust anything they say. And they're all agreeing on this is the stance, these are the bad people, these are the good people, and all of that. And it's just like, are you kidding me? We're not falling for this. And so you're one of those ones that God is speaking to as a seer. He's showing what's happening. He's revealing again the deep and hidden thing, which has come up several times tonight. You know, and you're able to go back in kind of the Paul Revere-like manner and say the Redcoats are coming, the Redcoats are coming. And then what's really fascinating is at the very end, you say, God, just take me out. And you literally fly away. And of course, flying away is the idea of ascension, it's the idea of rising to a higher place where you can see not only the hill, but below, the pond, the whole scene. It's a higher level of the seer gift, but it's also Psalm 91, that you're being sheltered under the shadow of his wings, and you're in that place of ultimate safety and protection.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
It's a great dream. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again for getting me on.